If they have a lot of pain, then you can obviously equate that to a lot of dollars. Yeah, what's up, Sales Ascender? I hope you're doing well today. Super excited to be here with you. It's Thursday, Thirsty Thursday. It's early, so let's just jump right into it. Today's question comes from Eric H. And Eric says, yo, Sean, what's the most important part of closing a sale? And I love this question because it matters. The perspective is the answer to this question. It's like, who are we talking about? Is it the prospect or is it the sales pro, right? Or the business owner, whatever. So I'm just going to cover both of these because I think it's really important. I'm going to start with the prospect because we should always start with the prospect. And this is kind of the thing that I say is like, what's the most important part of closing a sale when you're talking to a prospect from the prospect's perspective? If we can get that granular just for a second, and I'll share kind of some of the things that I think about. So if I'm a prospect and I'm buying, and again, put yourself in those shoes, like if you're buying your own product or service, what would be the most important part of closing that deal or starting on the pathway? Now, to me, if I'm a prospect, I'm going to think about a couple of things. Number one, I want to be heard. So as a sales pro, if I'm thinking about this, like how do I, as a sales professional, make it appear in reality, so this is actually happening, so that the prospect says, he or she understands me. He or she hears me. He sees me. She sees me. She feels it. She knows what I'm going through. She's walked in my moccasins. So being heard from the prospect's perspective is definitely one of the most important parts of closing a deal. It's going to create the highest levels of trust, bond, rapport, and all things that are good, right? So being heard is definitely from the prospect's perspective, one of the most important things when closing a deal. Secondly is clarity. Okay, so from the prospect's perspective, again, what is the most important part of closing the deal? I would say being heard first, and then literally having clarity on the outcome and the results and the process of what's going to go down. So as a sales professional, it's very important. That's why we teach this thing called the clear future at the end of every single sales call, no matter what it is, if it's a discovery call, a closing call, or anything in between, if you're selling to a team or a board of directors or whatever it's going to be. It's so vitally important for you as the business owner, the sales professional, to make sure and give them a very next step so they're not walking in the dark. Being the guide is the most important thing that you can do, and shining a flashlight on the pathway that the prospect is going to take is super powerful. And that's why we talk about this all the time in the clear future. So every single sales call at the end, typically what I'll always do, and I never miss this in one of my calls, there's two things I never forget in my sales calls when I do them, is literally I always set the rules and I always do a clear future. Like those two are bulletproof and never go away from any call that I do. And so providing clarity and giving them the next steps where it comes to results and outcome is, again, the second most important thing from a prospect's perspective when closing a deal. So what I would say is this, is saying, okay, hey, like this prospect, I'm so excited to be working with you. I'm grateful we've already collected the payments and everything else, closed the deal. So here's the next step. You and your team, or whoever the executioners are of doing the thing, here's the next thing that they're going to do. So make sure by this date, this gets done. Does that sound like something that you could do? Yes. Okay, cool. Now here's how I'm going to follow up. And then based on what happens here, this is going to be the result. Now our system, product, or service delivers this outcome in about this time frame. And all of a sudden, then the person that you've just closed the deal with is like, I have clarity, I have closure, I have a lot of vision on where we're going, and I feel like I've been heard by this professional person that I'm speaking with, which happens to be you as a sales pro or the business owner. And when you can get it to that position in the call, you've literally achieved everything you needed to do in the sales call from the prospect's perspective. Okay. So what is the most important part of closing a sale from the prospect's perspective? Again, that's making sure that they feel heard. Okay, so you want to listen. There's 2 ears and 1 mouth. I always say this, use them in proportion. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking in any sales call. And so making sure the prospect understands and feels like they've been heard, and they should be heard. Like, don't be fake about this, because if you are, they'll sniff right through it, and it's not a good thing. And then the second thing is making sure that they have clarity on the results that they're going to be getting, and the timeline that it's going to take to get those results. Because when they have those three things, they're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I love this person that I'm talking to. And next thing you know, everything's going to go the way that it needs to go. So those are the most important things for closing a sale from the prospect's perspective. Now let's talk about it from the sales professional or the business owner's perspective in terms of closing a sale. So first of all, what is the most important part of closing a sale is understanding that you and your organization can actually perform and get the results for your client. Because here's the thing, guys, let's be real for just 1 second, you and me, 1 second here. If we know we can't get a result for a person based on the thing that we're doing, we should definitely disqualify them from working with us. And it's always that way, right? So your job as a sales professional, when you're talking in this conversation and you're going down this pathway, is like, you need to literally be listening, like we said, and understand they have a problem that you can solve. Typically, it's something you should be able to define in the call. So literally, I always use this analogy, WASP, in the pain compartment, or that's one of the sections of the sales call that we go through. We should know exactly the 4, 5, 6, 10 pains that your product or service or thing solves. And then as a sales professional, it's important to kind of guide the conversation down those pathways. So I use this analogy, WASP, W-A-S-P, stands for, hey, are you worried about this thing in your business? Are you annoyed that this is happening? Are you struggling because this is going down? And then, hey, are you pissed off that this is actually happening in your business? Now, when you have those 4 things and you hear the client and what they say, then you're in good shape because you're like, yes, I can solve this problem. So what's the most important part of closing a sale from the sales professional's perspective? Literally understanding that your product or service can actually solve the thing. That's number 1. And number 2 is making sure that you get the transaction completed. I think that's really, really important, right? Because you're never going to close a deal unless you get the credit card swipe or you receive the cash flow or anything like that. So making sure that you have the conduit to accept payment, very important. And then in terms of anything else that's really super valuable and important is I would just say understanding their pain. And if they have a lot of pain, then you can obviously equate that to a lot of dollars. And so when it comes down to being a sales pro or the business owner doing the sales, then just think about like the most important thing I can do right now to close the deal is to create continuum momentum, right? Because if a deal is moving in the right direction, our job is to stay out of the way. Like sales pros and business owners typically can't convince or persuade anybody. The only thing that we can do is guide them down the thought process that they're having to say, oh, I see your solution, your product, and your service is the only thing that's going to solve the problems that I have. And when you do that, then boom, sale will automatically happen. And as long as you have the conduit to accept the form of payment, then you're in great shape. And that's literally how that works. And I think once the sale is closed, sometimes people have this thing called buyer's remorse, and there's another name for it, and I can't remember what it is. Cognitive dissonance, I think, is the actual like professional sales term that we use there. Cognitive dissonance, yes, that's right. And it just stands for buyer's remorse. And so, from a salesperson's perspective, I've had this happen to me in multiple times where it's like, I'd close a deal and then I'd drive back across town back way long ago, like 10, 15 years ago. I'd drive across back town and then I'd get a note from my assistant. She'd say, oh, so-and-so called and canceled the deal that you just closed with them back on the thing. This is where that quick conversation about eliminating buyer's remorse at the end of the conversation is so valuable, right? A lot of ways to do this. One of the things that I usually do is I say, hey, like, if anything changes, you'll be the first one to notify me, right? And this isn't something that you're going to like back out of, is it? Right. And you say it with a little bit of sincerity and genuine curiosity. And when somebody gives you that just quick affirm, oh, no, I'm not going to cancel this. This is going to solve my problems. Because typically you'll be in that place. And then right then and there, they've verbally committed to never having buyer's remorse or canceling the cognitive dissonance. And they're so much less likely to actually cancel that order when I were to get back to my office. And I didn't do that for a long time. And then when I learned that, I was like, oh man, it's just a quick question you can ask at the end of the sales call is say, hey, like, this is the right fit for you, right? You're not gonna like cancel this thing, are you? No, oh yeah, this is totally right. I love it. Okay, so you get the confirmation that eliminates the buyer's remorse, and then that will confirm and assure you that that money is going to end up in your account and you win the day. So that is the two pieces that I would say are the most important. Again, it matters on perspective. So from the prospect, again, just a quick recap is literally making sure that they feel heard. So they need to feel like they've be heard, and they have to have clarity on the outcome and the timeline of what the results are going to be. That's the most important from the prospect's perspective. And then from the sales pro's perspective is you got to make sure that they have a problem you can actually solve and you can actually get the results. Because if not, don't do the deal, walk away, say, hey, this is not the right time for me. I don't think this is a good fit right now. Let's just do this. We're going to continue to be friends. Let me see how I can connect you with somebody that might be able to help you. And that little piece will go way, way further than you trying to close somebody into a program or a system or a product that you have and then falling down on your face with delivery. What does that lead to? That leads to them talking trash about you behind your back, which is never a good thing. So with that said, I hope this guys, Eric, I hope this answers your question for you, man. It was a great one. So thank you. And again, guys, I will be back on Tuesday with the next high ticket tune-up. You'll see some of the branding change. I'm really excited. Our team has come back to change some of that stuff. So you'll see some of that stuff come out on Tuesday. So with that said, have a wonderful weekend. It's Thirsty Thursday. What are you drinking tonight? And by the way, never forget, if you have any questions about sales and conversions, that's what I want to talk about.